G'day there guys, it's your Aussie hubby Markee, back at it again with another episode of r/AmiTheA. Now if you love me like I love you, then you know what to do. I want you to tackle that like button like Steve Owen would tackle a bloody crocodile. Maybe even chuck an Aussie flag down in the comments. Now with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and get ready for some bloody good content. Posted by user Coyote Psychological, titled, Am I the a-hole for asking my friend for a boob voyage party? A while ago, my doctor found a cancerous lump in my breast. Thankfully, it was stage 1, but I did end up having a mastectomy. It was a stressful time, and when my friend was over a few days ago before my surgery, we got on the topic of the boob voyage party from Jane the Virgin. I asked her if she would throw me one of those parties to help me get my mind off it. I thought she would put together just a small girls' night, but she went all out. She invited all of my friends and my boyfriend, and had an array of boob paraphernalia. It was funny and light-hearted, and meant a lot to me to get all that support from my friends. During my recovery, my boyfriend confronted me and said that he hated the boob party. He thought it was tacky, and he was offended that I hadn't asked him to put something together instead. He said that we were supposed to be going through it together, and I should have thought about his feelings and the fact that he doesn't like parties and wouldn't want to spend one of the nights leading up to my surgery like that. I told him that I'm sorry that he felt that way, but it was really helpful for me, and I was the one getting surgery and treatment. I told him I wanted to support him, but my feelings had to take priority under those particular circumstances, and the party helped me. He's still angry at me for refusing to apologize for asking my friends to throw the party without asking about how he felt about it first. It comes up now and again, and he still wants me to apologize. Am I the a-hole? I'm gonna go with a big fat no, you're not the a-hole. It's absolutely your body, you do what you want, you're in party. How does his feelings at all factor into this? I don't get why he's so personally offended. He doesn't have to go if he doesn't want to, but that just shows that he's shallow, he's deep. I don't like parties, so I don't want you to throw one. I don't want to have to go to them. I don't want to have to be subject to this. You should think about me. No, you're a terrible boyfriend if you do that. Her life could be on the line here, given that breast cancer is such a serious issue. Jesus, let people have some fun, boyfriend. Surprised if she doesn't break up with this man over this. So, you went through a life-changing experience, and he made it all about himself? Not the a-hole. You probably would be very shocked how many men make their wife's or partner's diagnosis all about them. Hell, my father made my ovarian cancer diagnosis in my teens all about him. Yep, pretty unforgettable that in the US, when a man is suffering through a serious illness, his chance of his wife leaving him plummet to 5%. When a woman is suffering through a serious illness, her chances of her husband leaving her jump way up to 20 to 25%. Yep. It's pretty unforgivable if you ask me. It shows the differences on how men and women are raised, as well as how society views them. Well, one is raised and socialized to be a caretaker and head of the emotional labor department, the other one pretty much the opposite. When they suddenly have to deal with emotional labor and be a caretaker, obviously they can't handle it, and jump ship. Just another way of how sexism hurts everyone. I'm talking about just historically how men and women have been socialized. I'll make a disclaimer for the not all men crowd, and the women are horrible crowd too. It just makes sense that historically this is the way people have been raised for a long time, and a lot of cultures are still like this. Yes, I, 24 female, nursed my last boyfriend through Ewing's sarcoma, and during that time I realized that I didn't want to be in the relationship anymore. Note that I did not dump him while he had cancer. I realized that if the roles had been reversed, if I had been the one lying incapacitated after 6 months of chemotherapy and half my hip removed, the household would have gone to crap. Unlike me, he would not have regularly sterilized the entire house to protect my fragile immune system. He would not have washed my sheets. He would not have cooked without being asked. He would not have brought me breakfast in the hospital every day at 8 a.m. because I didn't care for hospital food. He would not have written down all my concerns and brought them up at the doctor's office because I was too tired to remember. He definitely would not have helped me change my surgical dressings, and he would not have known how to comfort me. It would have been my burden to comfort him and to hide my pain so that he didn't feel uncomfortable. I know this because that's exactly what happened for any minor injury that I received. My next partner is going to be just that, a partner. No more trying to convince the other person that they should respect me enough to take on their fair share of the emotional and physical labor. You either understand equality or you don't. Not the a-hole. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Your boyfriend is a self-centered a-hole who can't even tolerate you getting support in the way you need it for your medical diagnosis and treatment. That he thinks his feelings about your cancer are more important than your feelings is very telling. And I hope you'll ditch his ass and find someone who has a working sense of compassion. Exactly right. I had cancer. We went through it together, but not like this. She respected the fact that I'm the actual one with cancer. Anything else is unacceptable. You needed and deserved your boob party. Have her plan another one and don't invite his ass. Posted by user By the Twin Moons. Titled, Am I the a-hole for making customers that stiff me on the tip my last priority? Ooh. I, 21 female, am a server in a small town in Kansas, where the minimum wage for waitresses is $2.13 an hour, which is just enough to cover income taxes. Due to that, all of my income, and for most of the servers in the state, is comprised of tips. Recently, I got into an argument with an acquaintance, 25 male, of mine. He mentioned how he doesn't believe in tipping and that it wasn't right of me to treat customers that never tip as less important than other customers. Generally, if I have a lot of tables, I will put off serving cheapskates until my other tables are caught up. I understand that the tipping system is broken, but I also believe that people that don't tip with the mindset of, I'm going to change this system, consciously or subconsciously taking advantage of it. And I believe a portion of people refusing to tip is not going to change the system and force my employers to give me a living wage, but instead just screw me over because I live in a small town and don't have the option of finding a different job. Am I the a-hole here? I know my opinion is entirely biased, but what do you guys think? Edit. Everyone talking about how servers in cities make boku money? Please keep in mind, the average server in my small town post tips will make about $7.50 on the lowest day to $10 on the highest day. And in the state of Kansas, if you don't make the full minimum wage, your employer is supposed to, though this doesn't always happen in locally owned businesses. Edit. Me doing this only applies to regular customers. I had an entire argument that I laid out there, but then I realized I'm Australian. I don't know what I'm talking about. I've never lived in Kansas and these small cities. I don't know the environments that these people live in. I don't know what it feels like to be shortchanged. I don't know what it feels like to have someone not tip me and I lose my wage because of that. I feel like it's kind of an everyone sucks here situation. You suck for not tipping, and you suck for treating them worse because they didn't tip. But what's the solution to this? I don't know. Either OP is not the a-hole, or everyone sucks here. I'm just very conflicted and confused. Not the a-hole. Screw literally every single person that doesn't believe in tipping. Edit. If he lives in somewhere that pays the waitstaff a living wage, then feel free to not tip. If you live in America and don't tip when you go out to eat, make your own food. Maybe we should just pay servers a livable wage instead of this weird, awkward custom of tipping. Edit. I'm not suggesting not tipping right now, just that I would rather they pay the servers well, then we can get rid of tipping. The amount of people jump into conclusions in this thread is staggering. Who came up with this horrendous system? From the UK, and this whole concept is so infuriating. Pay a decent minimum wage, then tips covers good or great service and food, which is how it is in Australia, and I completely agree with that. This is my experience here, and is anecdotal. Call this a disclaimer. An ex worked in a pizza restaurant in a very busy shopping centre. She was paid approximately £350 per week. Tips were huge, ranging from $50 to $100 per shift. So each week, after passing on to the kitchen, she'd see about $700 per week on a good week as her contracted pay was too low to pay tax on. So £26,000 per annum, up to £36,000 per annum take home if everything was at its best. This is an extreme example as she was very good at what she did and picked the restaurant she wanted to work at based on its potential. Essentially, she was being paid more than junior doctors, teachers, solicitors with the same 2 years' experience that she had. This is why the rest of the world finds your tipping culture weird, and you get mixed responses from those outside of the US. I tip 10% for okay service and food, 20% for great. Poor service, and it's why should I tip? Not the a-hole, your friend is just being cheap. This, and getting what he pays for. When I was young, I asked Dad why everyone at the restaurant is so nice to him, and it seemed like he got better service than I got elsewhere. He looked me in the eyes and said, "Always tip well." And now I do, especially at places I frequent. To get a bad or no tip with me, you basically have to be actively rude to me, which almost never happens. Not the a-hole OP. When you pay more for something, that something will be higher quality. Why shouldn't that apply to service? And any non-tippers reading this, your experiences at restaurants and bars will be way better if you start tipping well, and it's worth it. Posted by user Red Suitcase 888, titled, "Am I the a-hole for telling my children's teachers to screw off and pulling her out?" This happened last year, and I was telling a friend about it yesterday. She said I overreacted and she would have handled it differently. My daughter was in the 5th grade at a regular public elementary school. Now, there is this other little girl in her grade that is just a known bully among the girls. My daughter is very sweet and quiet. She had never been in trouble before. Now, I think her kind nature has the tendency to make her a target for a bully. This girl had been picking on my daughter for years on and off, as well as lots of other girls. I tried so many times contacting her teachers, principal, her mum, school counselors. Every time it just fell on deaf ears. I know I wasn't the only parent who tried and tried. There were multiple families who were fed up. Well, last year, it was about 2 weeks before school was out, and my daughter and her best friend were playing outside. This girl starts picking on my daughter and her friend. My daughter looks her in the face and says, "You're a tramp. I'm sick of you teasing us. Please leave us alone." Well, this girl goes and tells the teacher. Now look, I would have preferred my child didn't use that type of language, and we did talk about how she could have been polite, but firm in her words. At the same time, if the school would have done something a long time ago, none of this would have happened. Well, my child's teacher began to scream at my child until she was in tears, and then sent her to the office where she was screamed at for hours longer. So now she's being bullied by the staff as well. I was livid and went into the teacher's office and let her have it. I told her if you people would have done something about the bullying, my child wouldn't have felt the need to bully this child back. How dare you make my child out to be a monster and a bad child when she has been victimized since the 1st grade by this girl. The teacher said I should be deeply ashamed of my daughter. Hell no, I told her to piss off and pulled her from the school. We will be attending a private school in the fall. Round of applause to OP for that one. Absolutely not the a-hole. Why do you even have to ask the question? The question should be, am I the a-hole for not punching that teacher in the face for defending the bully? Jesus. You gotta stop bullying at its source straight away, and they obviously were condoning it by not taking any action as teachers. That's disgraceful. I'd be reporting them to whatever entities would listen to me, but then again, that might fall on deaf ears, and the cycle repeats. It's why you take your kids to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and they tackle the problem themselves, right? Right? That's sarcasm, don't at me. Not the a-hole. You're a good parent for getting her out of there, and should be proud of your daughter for standing up for herself. My parents have a rule that if we do or say something like that to a jerk, then they won't get mad at us. After using a curse word, now it's the end of the world! But terrorizing someone isn't. Oh, of course! Total sense. Edit. My brother punched a total dick in the face who bullied everyone in the face. I'm gonna bully you right in your face, buddy. He shut up for the end of the year because my brother then went into middle school, 6th grade, and Doucheface went to 5th grade, and I went to 4th grade. I don't know how that changes anything, but okay. Not the a-hole, but did they really scream at her, and was it really for hours? Screaming at someone for 10 minutes sounds tiring. I can't imagine doing it for hours. That was the only thing that made me wonder if you're being an overdramatic parent here, but if everything else went down the way you say, then not the a-hole. My child said that her teacher yelled and screamed at her for about an hour, and then sent her to the office, where it continued by the principal. What I think most likely happened is there was some yelling, followed by them trying to get my child to apologize, which she was refusing, then followed by more yelling. Her teacher was a very intense personality. Jesus, she'll be better off at another school. So I agree that more should have been done to stop the bullying earlier, which likely could have prevented this, but also, think seriously about what your child is saying and how likely it is to have really happened that way. Not calling your child a liar, simply seeing kids exaggerate. Consider this. Where were the other students in her class as the teacher was yelling for an hour? What was happening with all of the office staff's other responsibilities as they yelled at your child for hours on end? The likelihood of this happening in such an extreme way for so long is highly unlikely. A teacher can't simply abandon the rest of her class to yell at a student for an hour. As a previous school employee, I think your child probably got yelled at by the teacher, maybe for several minutes and too harshly. Then your child was sent to the office, where they were scolded and sat for several hours after refusing to apologize. Obviously, I wasn't there, but the logistics of spending several hours yelling at a single child just isn't possible. There are too many other moving parts in a school. You could be very, very right. Little kids do exaggerate, especially if it felt really harsh and never-ending. I could see her thinking it was longer, but like I said above, I know the school counselor was called in to watch the class for a bit. Posted by user HateMyHouse22, titled, "Am I the a-hole for showing my boyfriend how disturbing it is to have him yelling at video games all the time by calling my friends up and having a joking scream?" My boyfriend plays games with some of his friends from college, and they get really intense about it, like yelling in frustration. It bothers me a lot. I grew up in a rough home, and I don't like that environment of screaming and cussing and anger in my home. I've told my boyfriend this, and he says he's not really mad, it's just a game. It's just the way he connects with his friends who are competitive people. But to be honest, it bothers me a lot. Last week, I had been napping, and I heard a holler, and I was immediately woken and feeling panicked. I, of course, quickly remember where I was, but I was upset. I really just don't want those energies in my home. I went downstairs and told my boyfriend to stop hollering at home because it's stressing me out, and he kind of brushed it off. Later that night, I called my friend as a joke, said I should just have a yell with her, and she was all for it. She went out to the woods behind her house and also grabbed her roommate on the way. It was kinda silly at first, yelling over Skype, but we kinda got into it. My boyfriend was yelling about some crap her boss said, and her roommate and I were yelling back, "Screw that girl, yeah, you need a job!" and stuff. It was kind of hard to keep from laughing, and we kept dissolving into giggles. It devolved into one of us shrieking like a maniac, everyone dying laughing, and then repeating. My boyfriend came upstairs at that point. He'd been sitting outside and smoking, and he asked what the hell was going on. I was like, I'm calling my friends. Thought we'd try having a scream. Seemed like a fun way to socialize. He was telling me off, saying that hearing women screaming is gonna make someone worried. And I was like, oh no, I'm sure it's fine. Screaming into a mic is just normal socializing, right? We talked later, and he didn't want me pulling that crap again because it freaked him the hell out to hear me screaming. And I was just like, okay, so do you finally get it? I feel freaked out when you bring that energy into the house too. And he said he didn't think it was the same. He and his friends normally socialize like that. Me and my friends were being crazy to make a point. I said that I had a lot of fun having a yell on the call. It felt good, and if he wanted to keep bringing that energy into the house, I'd be doing it too. But if he didn't want that kind of energy around, we could stop it together. He called me ridiculous for this. And yeah, I know it's kind of petty, but I also think I have a point. If he doesn't like me screaming in the house, he should understand I don't like him screaming in the house. Am I the a-hole for having a yell while video calling my friends to try and make a point to my boyfriend that his yelling when gaming with his friends is disturbing? No, Absolutely not. No, scream all you want. Screw him. He doesn't get to decide what goes and what doesn't go in this house just because he feels he wants it one way or another. You can't compromise like that. Absolutely, keep screaming in that house all you want. The neighbors call the cops, even better. The boyfriend gets to deal with that, I think. He needs to learn to stop screaming. I've been called out on my screaming in the house before. It's absolutely a behavior you can stop. He just doesn't want to stop it. And that's the problem here. He doesn't want to stop, but he wants her to stop. You can't have it both ways. Grow up and be mature, OP's boyfriend. OP not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. He's being super hypocritical. You asked him to stop screaming for valid reasons, and he refuses to respect that. You have the right to feel safe in your own home, and if his yelling makes you panicked and uneasy, he needs to grow up and change his behavior. OP, your screaming bothers me. Well, it shouldn't. Later. Why are you screaming? OP's partner refused to back down. That's a huge red flag. Not stopping behavior that really hurts your partner is another huge red flag. What OP is experiencing is called flashbacks, and I've seen a lot of it at work. I have them too. If he doesn't stop, OP risks being re-traumatized. His behavior is childish and reeks of entitlement. OP needs to reconsider the whole relationship unless her boyfriend decides to grow up. And honestly, yeah, the fact that it could re-trigger someone's trauma is absolutely a deal breaker in a relationship. Not the a-hole. Oh my god, dude, I'm in the exact same situation. I have autism and get triggered by loud noises, and especially shouting. My boyfriend will be playing his game with his friends and suddenly scream, and I legitimately start crying. I wish I had the guts or energy to do this so he would understand. Does he know you start crying? Also, that's really sad and I really feel bad for you, mate. Yes, he does. He eased up a little. Posted by user Eva Charisse, titled, Am I the a-hole for sleeping in my roommate's bed for a week after my boyfriend puked red wine all over mine? My roommate and I, both 20 female, don't know each other that well. We have mutual friends who both knew we needed roommates at the beginning of the year, so set us up. We're not in the same apartment at the same time very often, so I wouldn't say we're friends, but we don't dislike each other. At the beginning of last week, my roommate told me she was going back to her hometown, which was about 2 hours away, because her dad was sick and she wanted to be with her family. I said, okay, see you when you're back. You know, the usual. That night, I invited my boyfriend over and we ended up getting a bit drunk, which resulted in him puking red wine all over my bed. It was like 3 a.m. at this point and I was a bit tipsy, so I dragged him over to my roommate's bed and we both fell asleep. The next morning, my boyfriend went home, but I was hungover and didn't want to wash my sheets yet, so I just stayed in my roommate's bed. I ended up sleeping and staying in my roommate's bed for the rest of the week. She came back to the apartment on Monday whilst I was out shopping, and I came back to her questioning as to why there was a phone charger on her bed, and I told her that I'd been sleeping in her bed because of the red wine puke, expecting her to just find it amusing. But she was absolutely disgusted and called me a slob because I didn't wash my sheets. She then demanded I change her sheets because my boyfriend and I had both slept in them, and I refused, saying they were both hers so she should clean them. She's now saying that I crossed a line and that she's going to start looking for a new roommate. Am I the a-hole? How can you leave red wine puke on a bed for a week? Did OP just not tell us that she cleaned it? Is it just sitting there festering for a week? How could anyone do that? Obviously, OP is the a-hole and deserves to learn this lesson the hard way. How could you not be the a-hole in this one? I don't understand. It's so stupid. You're the a-hole. Changing her sheets would be the least you should do. I'd be demanding you vacuum my mattress as well. And it's pretty disgusting not washing the puked-on sheets either. If you and your boyfriend can't handle alcohol or the aftermath, maybe don't drink. She left puke-covered sheets for a week. Like, there's general laziness, and then there's this. I would be looking for a new roommate too. This is so gross and invasive for the roommate's privacy. That's a crack house level of laziness. I assumed when I read the title that maybe this was a misguided cleaning standoff with the boyfriend. Like, he'd be refusing to clean up his mess and she was finally putting her foot down about cleaning up after him. That would still be horrific in a way, because goddamn, you don't let biohazards marinate in your bed for a week to prove a point. Imagine my shock when I realized she left puke in her bed for a week because she felt lazy. Crack house levels of laziness is right on the money. Not the a-hole, not your bed, you shouldn't have slept in it. One night wouldn't have been terrible, but a whole week in someone else's bed because you didn't want to wash your sheets is just plain rude. Sorry to say, but your roommate is right. You're a slob. I agree with one night not being terrible in theory, but she dragged her just puked all over her bed boyfriend with her, therefore risking him puking all over the roommate's bed too. And I think we all know that if he had, it would have been her roommate's responsibility to clean it because it was her bed. And apparently, leaving pukey bedding laying around for a week is a viable option in Dopey's world. G'day there guys, Outro Markee here. Just wanted to say thank you so much for watching today's episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. Now with that said, we have some special mentions. Everyone that signed up for my Patreon, everyone that's a channel member, you guys all know who you are. I'm going to start putting you on screen in the near future. Sorry, I'm very lazy, but I do love each and every one of you, and you all know that. If you want to join, there is links down in the description below. If you want to be a channel member, there's a join button next to subscribe. It helps me out immensely. Also, I have a second channel that does memes. It's called Markee 2. It should be on screen here now. If you like memes and you want to laugh with me, it's some not so politically correct content all the time. Hope you enjoy it. Click on the screen, subscribe, and enjoy the memes. That's all I have for today, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.